Thank you, Ketan Bhai, for this detailed introduction. Friends, as we all know, the interim budget was presented yesterday, and there was not much into it. So what we decided is let us go into the technicalities and try to understand the process the government follows for making the budget. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just reshare it. Yeah, my screen is visible, right?
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, visible. It is visible.
It's fine. So, friends, we have been seeing the budget. Everybody gets like yesterday, although there were 3, 4 changes, it immediately comes to us through WhatsApp and all. But we need to understand the efforts put in by the government. कितनी मेहनत करते हैं, कितना trust डालते हैं वो लोग, कितना कोशिश करते हैं to bring us this budget. This is a big exercise. It takes over 6 to 8 to 9 months to prepare the budget and present it over to the public. There's a big process. So I have tried to make it simplified so that we also try and understand the budget making process, because this is important for us, especially as professionals, especially as senior citizens. It's easy to criticize the government ki this was not taken care of, this was not taken care of, this should have been taken care. But it's a big process. There's a coordination between the government, the different ministries, different states. Their grants, their requirements are taken into consideration, and ultimately it is decided and the budget is presented. There may be some shortcomings. There may be some things which are left out. So which normally if the government gets good suggestions, they amend it at the time of passing the budget. They change those things and they add it. So what we will be looking, initially we will be going into the history of the union budget, how the union budget started being presented in India, and then how the budget is made. That is the process. That is the main topic we will be seeing. Friends, this is what happens. Normally, this is the perception that the people have. कि मैं कमा रहा हूँ और गवर्नमेंट पूरा लेके चली जाती है मेरे पास. मैं यहाँ से मेहनत करके वो फिश, he is taking the fish. He is this fisherman, that poor fellow, he is getting the fish, and you can see from the basket something is taken out, which is the tax part that is going to the government. तो एक ये मेंटालिटी होता है कि अरे यार मेहनत मैं कर रहा हूँ, पूरा गवर्नमेंट लेके जाती है. तो गवर्नमेंट पूरा नहीं लेके जाती है, बट उनको थोड़ा कुछ तो चाहिए. So let us understand the definition of the budget to start with. The slides are moving, na Mansukh bhai?
Yes, sir. Perfect, sir.
The word budget, it is derived from the French word boget, which means a leather bag. आप देखते हैं ना, जब भी मिनिस्टर आता है तो लेदर बैग में पहले लेके आते थे. आजकल पिछले 2-3 साल से हमारी मैडम वो एक लाल कलर के पाउच में लेके आती है. अर्लियर इट यूज्ड टू बी अ लेदर बैग. तो उसमें से बोगेट में से बजट वर्ड बना. It is normally announced to disclose the government's future expenditures intended to strengthen the nation's economy and consolidate economic stability through tax proposals. The budget in India was first introduced by the then East India Company to help the British Crown to understand. The pre-independence finance minister James Wilson, he presented the first budget to India for India on 7th of April 1860. The budget used to be presented, as we all know, in the evening. The reason being, the British Parliament used to meet in the afternoon. Once they approved the budget, then only it was being presented to the Indian Parliament. Because ultimately they were the rulers, so they had to approve the budget. So it was approved by the British Parliament in the afternoon. That's why it was a trend that the budget should be presented in the evening, which was continued till long, till say around 2001. The first budget of independent India, it was presented by R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. He was the first finance minister of independent India in November 1947, and there were no tax proposals in that. John Mathai, the third finance minister, he presented the first budget of the Republic of India, that is in 1950-51. Once we became the Republic on 26th of January 1950, the first budget was presented by John Mathai. And the first budget of the first elected government. As we all know, the first elections were held in 50-51 after being Republic. C.D. Deshmukh, Chintamani Deshmukh ji, he presented the first budget of the first elected Indian parliament. Morarji Desai, our former past Prime Minister, he holds the record of presenting the budget the highest number of times, that is 10 times. I think our current Finance Minister, Sitaraman ji, she has presented the budget yesterday for the 6th time. So that must be the second in line. But Morarji Desai ji holds the record for the highest number of presentation of budget. Initially, the budget used to be printed in English only. Then they started printing in Hindi since 1955-56. Up to the year 2000, the budget was presented at 5 p.m. on the last working day of month of February. That was the trend of the evening going on, that it used to be presented on 28th or 29th of February, being the last working day. In the year 2001, Yashwant Sinha being the finance minister, he started the practice of presenting the budget at 11 a.m. That's what I told you earlier, that the budget used to be presented up to 2001, up to in the evening. In the year 2017, Arun Jaitley as a finance minister, he changed the date of presenting the budget to 1st of February at 11 a.m. Earlier, as we all know, it used to be in the end of February. Since 2017, Arun Jaitley being the finance minister, he changed the date to 1st of February. So what is the general budget? Now, let us understand what's the general budget before we go into the process of making of the budget. It's the annual exercise of presenting the budget, and it's a mean to present a roadmap for detailing the use of public resources. As we all know, the government highlights the roadmap, the achievements, what they have done, how much they have spent for the infrastructure, how much they have done capital expenditure, how much revenue expenditure, how much they have spent for military, how much is the plan to spend. So everything comes in that. Article 112 of the Constitution states that government should lay before the parliament annual financial statement, that is the budget. So it is also mandated by Article 112 that the budget should be presented to the parliament. The annual financial statement or the budget is prepared on a cash basis and on a realistic estimate. So normally, and this we must have seen, the government when it gives estimates of tax collections and all, it is net of refund, because refund, although it may be pertaining to previous years, because it is given in the current year. So the revised estimates, when they are given for the collections, it shows net of refund, because the government functions on a cash basis. This is how our website, the indiabudget.gov.in sees. And these are the documents that are presented along with the budget. Whenever we present the budget, we see the budget. And if you go to that website, here you will find all these are the documents that you will find. The annual financial statement, that's the budget. The demand from grants that has come from various states, various ministries. The receipts budget, expenditure budget, volume 1 and volume 2, basically capital and revenue. The finance bill, suggesting the changes in the tax structures. Finance will basically suggest the changes in the structures. Memorandum explaining the provisions in the finance bill. So we have a memorandum which gives details of the provisions, what the government has brought and the reasoning behind it, why it is brought. Then a budget at a glance, highlights of the budget, status of implementation of announcements in finance minister's budget speech. So whatever she had made important announcement that we would be doing this. So the finance minister in the next speech, it gives the status. So it is not given in the speech itself, but it is given as a backup paper on the website. You can download it and check it out, that what were the assurances given, what was the announcement made, and what is the follow-up. And Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act related documents. This is basically the stewardship that the government had introduced. It was introduced by Shri Manmohan Singh post 1991. It is basically to ensure responsibility of the government, that the government also acts within the budget and it just does not go out of hand. As we all know, we have a comparative budget of the US, which always is a deficit budget. And why? Because they just keep on minting money. But here in India, we have a fiscal responsibility statement that has to be given along with the budget, which clearly shows for fiscal prudence to keep the deficit in control. This is an important statement. To keep a check on what the government says, so they cannot make ad hoc and just vague announcements and vague promises. whatever promises they make, it has to be checked and they are kept in check. What are the roles played by various people? Traditionally, it is the role of the finance ministry to present the budget. The budget division of the Department of Economic Affairs, which is part of the finance ministry, is primarily responsible for presenting the budget to the parliament. The Department of Expenditure looks into the expenditure related financial policies. Office of the Controller General of Accounts. Mind you, this is not the Comptroller Account General, that is the CAG. This is the Controller General of Accounts, which maintains accounting system. It maintains the accounting that we see, the revised estimates and accounts of various ministries that we get along this statement. The chief economic advisor of the country, he holds the discussions with Niti Aayog. Before the Niti Aayog was formed in 2014, there used to be the Planning Commission. So the CEA used to discuss with the Planning Commission and state governments to prepare 5-year plans. 5-year plans used to be there for the working, and based on that, they advise the government for the budget currently to ensure that the 5-year plans are also taken care of. Then resources for which are allocated in the budget. So that's what I said, after the 5-year plan, so the planning is done like Manrega, there's a 5-year plan, maybe food security, there would be a 5-year plan immediately. Even now in the current budget, as you have seen, the government has assured that the free ration given to 80 crore people would continue up to 2028. So resources have to be allocated for that. The plan has to be done for that. That's why it's done on a 5-year plan. Planning is done. The Finance Commission is responsible for allocating the taxes to the states and central government. The share of the taxes that goes from the central to the states is decided by the Finance Commission. If you remember, up to 2014, the states used to get around 28% of the central share. Now the states are getting over 42% of the central share of taxes. The state share of taxes, anyhow, they are getting their own collections, but whatever collections are being made by the central government, up to 2014, the states used to get only 28%. Now the states are given 42% and above as a central share, state share for the central taxes collected. RBI is responsible for defining the monetary policy. Friends, you would be trying to think why I am bringing in all these things, because these are all, they are taken care in the budget. It is, the budget is not made individually by just by the financial ministry, the Department of Economic Affairs. Everybody is taken care. The RBI is involved, the Finance Commission is involved. So whatever they do, they have to plan. Like as I said, 58% goes to the central government. So 58%. So what revenue they would need for that 58% to run the country, to take care of their expenses, take care of the infrastructure, developmental expenses, and whatever all they are doing. So the RBI has to define monetary policy accordingly. So it's a team which runs. Everybody works together. The budget exercise normally starts in the month of October, August, and September, and it ends in May of the next year with the passing of the union budget. Like the budget was presented yesterday, but it is an interim budget. But in case of a normal budget, the normal budget is presented on 1st of February. Then after 10 to 15 days, there's a break of the parliament. It goes to the standing committee. There are recommendations received. Once the recommendations are received and feedback is obtained from the public, then in the second half of the session, the budget session, the government passes. And normally it is passed up to 31st of May, depending on the session. Now this budget, the interim budget may be passed immediately because the elections are due, and then another budget will be presented in July, which would be passed by the end of July. That is only a standby, only in case of elections where an interim budget is given. Otherwise, as the normal budget is passed by end of May. So what are the stages of preparing a budget? We also know what we do in the budget. We estimate the expenses, and based on that, we try to estimate the revenues. But here also, estimates of revenues and expenditures are done. What would be the total expenditures that would be required? What would be the total revenue that would be required based on that? And the expenditures would not means how it is arrived at is, as we said earlier, it is in discussion with the state and central government, various ministries, the Finance Commission, and also demands are received from all the ministries, demands are received from all the states. Based on that, the expenditures are decided, and based on that, the government decides what revenue should be charged, maybe in indirect taxes, maybe in direct taxes, or if there is a shortfall, then how much fiscal deficit we can sustain, and based on that, how much new minting has to be done. Then the first estimate of deficit is prepared. Once we have a revised estimate of expenditures and revenues, what is the normal revenue currently, like this year they had, over the last 5 years, they say our income tax revenue has increased by 3.5 times. So they know the incomes are increasing, what estimate it would increase. Based on that, they have the first estimate on the budget. Then the ministry starts planning in discussion with other ministries, state governments and all that. How do we narrow down the deficit? So how the expenditures can be cut or how the revenues can be increased. They look into all the possibilities. The grants that are coming from the ministries and the grants that are coming from the various ministries and maybe from all the states and all that, they may request them that what are your urgent grants, what is the necessary expenditure, what you can curtail, if you can curtail something. And based on that, maybe if the revenue is too short, then they may think of increasing the tax base or increasing the revenue by increasing taxes and all that. So there are various things of increasing the revenue. It can be through increasing the tax base. It can be through increasing the taxes. So it depends. Based on that, the deficit is narrowed, and once that is finalized, the presentation and approval of the budget is done in the parliament. So these are the basic 4 stages of the budget making. The process starts with the issuing of the budget circular to all the ministries or departments, calling for revised estimates of revenue and expenditures for current year. So whatever estimates they had done for the last year and the budgets were allocated, so they are asked to give revised estimates of revenue and also the expenditure for the current year, what they need for the next year, so that the budget can be prepared. That is the budget estimates of the financial year, and also setting the time limit. They are also given a time limit that, yes, as I said, it starts in August, mid-August. So they are giving a timeline that you have to reply maximum by mid-September and all that, because it's a process and everybody has to be involved in that. October is normally utilized for follow-up on circular and collecting and gathering data from ministries for pre-budget discussion. So once the ministries get the data from state departments, from ministries, from state governments, then they plan for pre-budget discussions. Pre-budget meetings are called by the finance ministry and the economic secretary with financial advisors and other stakeholders. Even we are called, the institute is called in pre-budget meetings, various tax bodies are called, various industry bodies are called, various unions are called for pre-budget meetings to understand their requirements, what are their requirements for the budget, what they need, what suggestions they have, reduction of taxes, increase of expenditure, and whatever it is. So the suggestions are invited, like our association, even AIFTP gives a pre-budget memorandum. Practically all practicing associations, our Institute of Chartered Accountants and other, the FICCI, ASSOCHAM, they all give pre-budget memorandums based on their requirements, based on their suggestions. The government has pre-budget meetings with them, and then they discuss all these suggestions with them and arrive at a final figure. And then some proposals may be accepted, it may not be accepted, depending on the government's assessment, whether it is required, whether they can sustain, whether it is not needed. Based on that, it is done. Then Niti Aayog presents its forecast of the planned resources required by the first week of November. As I said, it's a 5-year plan. So the planning is done. So they inform the ministry that for this year, we have planned this much, because on the 4-year plan for this year, this is the planning. And for this, we would need all these resources required. That is this much funding, this much planning and all that. Maybe schemes like Manrega, maybe schemes like Jandan, maybe schemes like Ujjwala. Now the solar scheme that has been started. So this planning is given to the finance ministry and the finance ministry plans. Then ceilings of plan and non-plan expenditure, including major subsidies and defense, are finalized around mid-November. So based on all the requirements received, the ceilings are finalized. What is the ceiling for the planned expenditure and what is the ceiling for unplanned expenditure, except for major subsidies, like this food subsidy given for 80 crore people, or defense, because defense is one thing that the government cannot afford to compromise. So for these subsidies, except for these subsidies and defense, plan and non-plan expenditures, there is a ceiling set that, okay, we will keep the ceiling. This is up to the maximum limit till which we can have the planned expenditure or the non-planned expenditure, and we will not go beyond that. The ceilings are communicated to the concerned ministries, departments, or the state governments by the end of November. As I said, this was the second part, narrowing of the deficit. So they are asked to curtail that this is your ceiling. Now you can give us the revised estimates. They might have submitted the original estimates by October, as we have seen through the earlier process. So they are given time limit that you please submit these ceilings in the revised estimates so that we can move ahead. Then a third circular based on that for supplementary demands of grass is issued in the first week of December, because the earlier demands were received. Now, if the ceilings, if there is a scope, the states may give a supplementary circular for supplementary demands for grants, additional grants that may need, or maybe for last year also, if there's a shortfall, they may need some supplementary demand. So a third circular is issued in the first week of December that you give it within 15 days. Gross budgetary support is intimated to Niti Aayog by second week of December. That is what this is what we can give you based on the resources that they have asked. So the budgetary support that they can give to the Planning Commission for their projects is given by second week of December. Planned allocation is intimated to the ministries by third week of December. So final allocation that is done, as I said, within 15 days once they get the supplementary demands, grants or the original demands. Then the planned allocation to various ministries, departments. Here, when I am speaking about ministries and departments, it also includes the state governments. Please take care. Although it may not be written, I have missed out, it seems, but it includes all the ministries, departments, as well as the state government over there. Once they receive, they start submitting their revised and budget estimate based on the ceiling defined from the second week of December. So the plan is given to them that we can go by this. These are the ceilings that you have. These are the limits that you have. The states and the departments and the ministries, they start working on it. And based on that, they start submitting their revised and budget estimate. So earlier, they might have given XYZ amount, but since the ministry says, the finance ministry says that we have a budget, this is the ceiling, you cannot go beyond. So they revise all their estimates and the ceilings and they move around. Estimates of major subsidies and defense. Once all these revised estimates are received, the estimates of major subsidies and defense are finalized by end December. Because as I said, there cannot be any compromise, especially on defense, but subsidies are also normally required in a welfare state, because India is basically a welfare state. So we need to give major subsidies like Manrega, food security, and the right to education. So that planning has to be there. So then they look into it, what can be done. The proposals from various ministry departments have to be received by end of December. All the estimates are finalized by 5th of January and the budget printing work starts. The whole process that started somewhere in August or September through the issue of circulars to the department, to the ministries, will culminate by 5th of January and the budget printing work starts. So once it is done, the accumulation of the documents start, the budget documents are then accumulated. Printing initially used to be done in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was subsequently shifted to the Minto Road press in Delhi. And since 1980, the budget papers are printed in the basement of the North Block in the Finance Minister's press. So the budget documents do not move out of the North Block at all. They are directly moved into the basement from the Finance Ministry offices. The process is totally sealed from public. in January. So January, no press, no public, nobody can enter the press. It is totally sealed. It is totally blocked because we have seen the secrecy of the budget. Even in news up to yesterday morning, you might see there is an information the government may give this benefit, the government may give. Yesterday morning, if you see, although it was an interim budget, but lots many things were said that this 6,000 rupees that is given to the poor families, it may farmers, it may increase to 12,000 rupees. The Ladli Bahan Yojana in MP, it may be brought in the India at the central level, and that scheme may be introduced. In the budget, there may be some tax reliefs given. There may be some excise cut given for the petrol and fuel, all that. So all these were going on. If you have read up to 11 o'clock in the morning, these analysis that you might have seen all on paper, everybody has some plan. Everybody thinks that I will get this. But it is so secretive that it is very difficult to get information from inside what is actually going. And yesterday is a good classic case where we saw that all many estimates were done. We are getting information. The government might give this, the government might increase this allocation, the government might increase this allocation. And at the end of the day, what happened? Hardly two amendments were suggested in the budget. So this is what happens. This is the level of secrecy that is maintained. The printing of non-sensitive documents like expenditure budget, part 1 and 2, demands for grants, etc. starts on 16th of January. Non-sensitive documents are moved from budget press to room number 72 in North Block on 21st February. So once the non-sensitive documents which are started printing from 16th of January, this is 21st January, sorry, there's a printing mistake. This is 21st of January, it is not 21st of February. I'm sorry, there's a typing error. So the non-sensitive documents, once they are printed, they are moved from the budget press to room number 72 in the North Block again. Budget press is locked on 24th January. So once the employees are inside, all staff are restricted from leaving the press till the date of budget. So you can imagine their plight. Earlier, when it was on 20th February, they used to be there for 11 days inside. Somewhere around 15th or 16th of February, they used to go inside. A lock is kept from outside. They are not allowed a mobile phone. They are not allowed phones. They have to stay inside. They cannot be in touch with their families, neither friends. Nobody can enter except some of the high-ranking officials like the finance secretary or maybe the CA or maybe the finance minister or the minister. Nobody can enter that room till the day of the budget. That is early morning on the budget. They go inside. And how it happens is, this happens is with this halwa ceremony. You must have seen for the past few years, it has been shown on TV. So this halwa ceremony used to be done on 15th or 16th of February earlier. Now it is done on 24th of January. It is what it says, it is an integral prelude to the budget presentation, hosted and attended by the finance minister and other officials involved in the budget making process. The ceremony heralds the start of budget document printing. So उनको खिला पिला के अच्छा मीठा मीठा खिला के फिर अंदर रूम में जाके पैक कर देते हैं सील में, भैया अभी आप नहीं निकल. So they are pushed into the room. They are locked from outside. They are disconnected from their families. They are disconnected from their friends. No touch with the outside world. They are only concerned with the budget. This is to ensure the secrecy of the budget, that nothing goes out. Printing of the receipts, budget, including financial responsibility and budget management, statements and annexures and annual financial statements begin on 24th of January with the halwa ceremony, as we saw the halwa ceremony photograph. Finance bill in Hindi and English, memorandum explaining the provisions of the finance bill and budget and the glance is printed somewhere around 25th of January. Finance minister's budget speech and key features of the budget are printed on 28th of January. That is we saw in that list, budget speech, key features and all. Then a cabinet summary note is prepared on the 29th of January. What does that mean is a note is presented along with the budget to the cabinet for approval, because everybody can't read the whole speech and the budget. So a brief summary is presented to the cabinet, because until the budget is approved by the cabinet, it cannot be presented to the parliament. You must have noticed every finance minister just before going to the parliament. First, they go to the president, they meet them, get their approval, then they go to the parliament. In parliament, there is a cabinet meeting half an hour before the budget presentation, 15 to 20 minutes before actually. And then 11 o'clock, the budgets are. So this is the level of secrecy that is maintained. Even the ministers are not aware. They are made to given a cabinet summary only 15, 20 days, minutes earlier. So it is very difficult for them to leak out any information. So this is the level of secrecy that is maintained for the budget. Then the approval of the PM on the cabinet summary is obtained somewhere around 30th or 31st. And there is a summary presented for the president to approve, because it is this presentation is under Article 112 of the Constitution, as we saw earlier. So the approval of the president is also required. So the summary note for the president is required. So the PM's approval is needed, and which is done by 30th of 31st. Then the president's recommendation on the budget under section 112, 115 and 117 of the Constitution are obtained on the 30th or 31st or 1st of February, latest by 8:30 a.m. This is what we see, that the finance minister goes to the president house, that is the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and gets their approval latest by 8:30. So normally it happens from there, they go to the parliament. Then the cabinet approval on the budget proposal based on the cabinet summary is obtained early morning of 1st of February. As I told you, it is just 15 to 20 minutes prior to the budget presentation in the parliament itself. Once the finance minister goes to the president house from Rashtrapati Bhavan, the finance minister goes directly to the parliament. From the parliament, in the parliament, 20 minutes prior, there is a cabinet meeting, they approve it, and the finance minister directly goes to the house and presents the budget. And then you have the budget speech coming. The finance minister starts the budget speech sharp at 11 a.m. on 1st of February. Once the finance bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha, on the completion of the speech, the bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha and the budget documents are laid in the Rajya Sabha immediately on the conclusion. And then it is approved somewhere in May. So I will be open for, these are the sources from where I have got all this information. And I would like to thank AFTP West Zone for giving me an opportunity for presenting this technical issue. And I'm open for questions. If any, you can raise a hand and you will be unmuted to ask the questions. Ashang bhai, over to you.
थैंक यू विजय भाई, आपने बजट कैसे प्रिपेयर करते हैं और किस तरह से आपने फर्स्ट बजट कब इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था, वो सब आपने हमको जो जानकारी दिया वो हमारे लिए बहुत जरूरी है। और हम लोग जो चीज से वाकिफ नहीं थे उससे आपने वाकिफ करवाया, तो वो भी एक हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छी बात हुई है। तो आपने अपनी स्पीच में बजट कैसे प्रिपेयर करते हैं उसके बारे में हम सभी को डिटेल में जानकारी दी, उसके लिए मैं आपका धन्यवाद करता हूं। अब मैं सभी मेंबर्स को रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूं कि किसी को भी इसके बारे में कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो प्लीज आप, विजय भाई हमारे पास यहाँ पर है तो आप उनसे क्वेश्चन आंसर कर सकते हैं, प्लीज। एनीवन हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस? हाँ बोलिए मितेश भाई बोलिए।
Yeah.
Vijay bhai,
हाँ.
one query is about the economic survey. What is the importance and the relevance of economic survey just before the presentation of the budget in the house?
Sir, economic survey is the guidance note that is given to the government that this was our plan. They do us that this is what we had planned during the year for doing, and what is the current situation and how we will be moving ahead. So it plays as a guidance map for the government to move ahead. And it also informs the public that what goes on and how it proceeds.
Okay, thank you.
People can raise hand